Welcome to the You Can Be Unstoppable podcast. My name is Ewelina, your host and certified hypnotherapist. In this podcast, I will share with you how to tap into the power of your subconscious mind. I intend to share with you how learning how to use the power of your subconscious mind can help you to create a successful and abundant life with ease, how to connect with yourself while fostering a healthy relationship with your body and mind. Tapping into the power of the subconscious mind will help you to learn how to manage your emotions, become more resilient and present in all of your relationships. Self-love and self-worth are the keys to the kingdom of success and abundance, to happy and healthy life on your terms. Welcome everyone, and today's guest is Ewelina, and he's the confidence coach. Nice and short and simple.
Hello everyone.
Welcome. To start us off, I've got a simple question to you, I hope.
Sure.
What happened in your life that you decided to become a confidence coach?
Sure. So I chose to be a confidence coach because honestly, it's the biggest thing I've struggled with in my life. Ever since I can remember when I was a kid, I always was kind of timid and shy. And I just struggled to believe in myself. And that really stuck with me for forever, honestly. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized I started to build more confidence the more I got outside my comfort zone and did more things. And then when I decided to become a coach and go into business only a handful of years ago, I remember being on a summit or something at some sort of event with Tony Robbins or Dean Graziosi or one of those guys. And they were just like, what is one thing that you've struggled with that you've overcome? Or you're ahead in a lot of areas. And I was like, oh, that one, confidence. That's definitely me. Because I certainly haven't figured it out, because confidence is one of those things where you get to new levels of it, but you'll be like, oh, I've completed my confidence. I am at the pinnacle. I am done. I don't have to do any more. It just doesn't work that way. So I wanted to do this to teach it, because if you want to get better at it, you also teach it. So it's kind of a nutshell answer.
It's kind of alludes to my next question, asking why kind of this need? But I know what you mean, because confidence is something I really struggled over the years. So when I was younger, I was really, really shy, which wasn't really helping. I'm an introvert, which added to the injury. I was naturally more inclined to spend times on my own, not so easy to, connect with other people. So lack of confidence, shy, add to this all sorts of traumas that I went through in my childhood, and you just had a perfect mix of someone who just wasn't confident at all. So I can completely understand where you're coming from. Do you find that your clients often struggle with confidence, and what is behind that? What is the reason that they struggle with confidence?
One of the first things I teach people is what is the Latin root for confidence, which is confidere, which means intense trust. It means intense trust in yourself. And a lot of the root between lack of confidence is you don't trust yourself in a lot of ways. And that shows up in various forms and ways. And so what I really try to connect with my clients is hey, there's this area that you want to be more confident that you suck in, but look at this other area that you are confident in. And how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Absolutely.
That's the way I get there. But what's behind it is like I said, it's lack of trust and belief. And also the element of we love to compartmentalize our lives. And say I may be not doing well in business, or I may be killing it in the relationship department. or I'm doing amazing in finances, but not so good in health. And so you can connect those things and like I said, build your confidence, and you can do it in one area. You can translate those skills in the other, and just taking it slow to get to the level that you want to be like in those other areas. So
Mm.
yeah.
Right, and that's interesting because I find a lot of women struggle with self-trust and they doubt themselves a lot more than men. Would you say that's true from your end?
I would absolutely. There's a great TED talk on this about actually, and it's I forget what it's called, but I'll send the link and we'll put it in the notes or something. And it talks about how women tend to say "I'm sorry" more.
Mm.
Men do. For like an example is like you show up late. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. And not always, but more often than not, men will be like, "Thanks for waiting." Type of things. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry for this, I'm sorry for that, I'm sorry for existing. Ultimately, like that's the worst case scenario. And I think that I think that's like a different societal thing about like how men are taught to be more assertive, more
Mm.
just leaders, if you will. And women are taught to be like, hush, be quiet, stop, type of thing, which is kind of the more extreme type of thing. But it's like there is an element as well of like statistically women tend to struggle with anxiety more. Men tend to struggle with substance abuse more. So men will numb out and women will just like stress out type of thing. And so yeah, I don't know, that comes to mind first thing.
Yeah, and I think that is true because how we are being brought up, there is a difference between men and women or boys and girls. And that unfortunately shows up later on in life. Because I think, like you said, men are being brought up to be leaders, where women are being brought up to be caregivers.
Mhm.
And that, with the way the society operates these days, it's a problem because a lot of women choose not to have families. They choose to focus on a career first, or if I have family later, or do not have family at all. But then they do struggle to step into that leader role because if we show emotions, we are being called emotional, that we are not good leaders and all sorts of names. So we do face a lot of stereotypes, you know, around women in a workplace. But to this menopause, which a lot of men don't even want to go there, the thing is, if women are in a workplace, you are going to face with all problems. They do not exist just because you don't want to live there.
Yeah.
So really, we really need to address all of this at the root base, which is how do we brought up girls and boys?
How do we grow up boys and girls, you said?
How we bring them up, how do we teach them to be in a society? You say that's, where we really should be looking at.
Absolutely. I mean, it definitely starts in childhood, especially like, I mean, one of the techniques I do is NLP. And what we talk about in this modality is just like
Mm.
all your programming, how you're taught, and where your trauma comes from the ages of 0 and 7. So basically, you're screwed up because of what happened, what mommy and daddy taught you then. The good news is when people hear that, they're like, oh, I'm fucked. But the good news
No,
is,
absolutely not. It is all um,
yeah.
reversible to a point, I guess. You can
Well, the
call
good
it
news
that
is
way.
like you can reverse it, of course. But like I bring that up because like those are some of the most key pivotal times. And after 7, of course, it's still impressionable as well. But like I think really what comes to mind is like teaching acceptance of learning how to develop both like a healthy balance flow of both masculine and feminine energy, yin and yang, if you will, and just leaning into those and just not forcing your child to take on a certain role. And that's challenging a lot of ways because we're humans. I've heard, I'm not a parent, but I've heard from parents it's like it's kids raising kids essentially.
It is. That's a good one because I think we are being a children that grown up bodies, but we're not really,
Yeah.
grown
And
up as we think that we are.
Someone wise once told me the healthiest thing you can do for if you aren't a parent or you don't have a partner yet, the healthiest thing you can do for your future spouse and your future child is to be the best version of yourself.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, how do you influence children more? Be a better human, and you're going to influence them better. Just like, you know, don't be an asshole. Like, stand by your morals. What are your morals? What are your values? What are you committed to? Like, are you committed to anything? Like, what do you care about in life? And like, do you contribute? Like, all those wonderful, amazing things we could list off and like be an authentic human. And when you are more of an authentic human, when you're authentic self, thus trusting yourself more, that confidence will come out. And children will be able to model that and they will combat the self-esteem issues that are inevitably going to happen because life's hard as shit. And so
Well,
like,
life, regardless
yeah.
what we're going to do, life will always life.
So I think in a lot of ways, like some children do struggle with self-confidence. I mean, all children do because they go through the growing phase and teenage
Yeah.
years are, but like having a model of like what a confident individual or like having a leader, either male or female in either role, um, to lead them and just like, follow just being an awesome leader human is good. And a lot of people don't have that. I certainly didn't have that. I didn't, growing up, like, I didn't have either a male leader to teach me more like healthy, reasonable, male energy dominate things to have. And I didn't have female ones either. I
Mm.
had more female teachers, but I wouldn't say I had strong female leaders in a lot of ways until my later years. And so now I do surround myself with that. And it's like, in some ways, I feel like I'm playing catch up and it's amazing. It's awesome. And I feel so much because of it.
That's good. And I think that is really, that's what I always say to people. Like, if you've got children, they understand a lot more than you think that they do. And the best way to teach them is by role models or start from self. Look at yourself because you can think that you can hide from them. You can. They really can feel the energy, the undertones, the silence between the parents, all of it. You think that you're hiding, they really know all of it. So, and I know that you do hypnosis as well, so you can, we notice from clients when they go back into the scenes from early childhood, like clients when they were 3 and they remember the parents getting divorced and all the interpretations and stories they created, they know it all. So the best way is to work on yourself and then role model, because they will follow you. Kids follow you, like when they catch the bad words or they hear something and then just keep going and repeat and you're like, oh my God, like when did they hear this? But because they heard you probably saying this.
Yeah.
So I love this because that's the best way. And I didn't have a role model either. So that would have significantly changed my life if I had a role model to be more confident or someone who's successful and it showed me how to be more of the person.
And one thing that comes to mind I'd like to share, somebody awesome said this to me, and I'd love to share with you is it's never too late to have a happy
No,
childhood.
no, absolutely.
Never.
Yeah, because we parent them ourselves, like we said, earlier. It's like we are children anyway in the grown-up bodies.
Yeah.
And when we bump into tantrums, I call them adult tantrums.
Yes.
When, we bump into anger or things that we are frustrated about, that's the inner child screams because there's something that we are not getting. There is some need that is not being fulfilled.
Mhm. Yeah.
So the best way is just pause and ask yourself, what is that you want and need and you are not getting?
Mhm.
There's a reason when you're having an adult tantrum.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. So going back to, you mentioned masculine and feminine, like we, kind of discussed this before we jumped on, that
Yeah.
is a bit of a misbalance between masculine and feminine, because we both, men and women, have masculine and feminine energy. However, there is, I would say from my perspective, a huge imbalance. Both men and women, where they lean more into. So kind of back up. We naturally can be more into feminine or masculine energies. That's normal. Some women are a bit more into masculine or feminine. Same goes for men.
Mhm.
However, I think that imbalance that I'm talking about is far more imbalance. I'm trying to write for the right words because I think with women trying to fit in into the world as it is, we stepped too much into the masculine energy, trying to build the careers. And I want to know from your perspective, what do you think about, and do you think the same problems goes for men? Are they too much into masculine or feminine, and how that plays out from your perspective?
Yeah. So what comes to mind for me is like it's really difficult for women not to step into her masculine energy when it comes to business, especially. And like if you're in the career world, it is a more it's a more energetic space for masculine, like taking action, like, being assertive in a lot of ways. And that just, it is more demanding that way. For me, I actually am more naturally rested in my feminine in a lot of ways. And so, I thought a lot about that because growing up, I was just like, was there something wrong with me? Because like I'm a guy, like, am I different or something? And no, it's just like I was raised by a single mother and I've been around mostly women all my life. And I make up that that has a contribution to it. I don't 100% know, but I realize that that's also just kind of what I've more stepped into. And I don't know if that is just how I am versus maybe it's just something I've practiced more as a habit.
Mm,
And that idea, I came to that conclusion recently through a leadership training that was a much more masculine leadership training where it's just like it kicked my ass and it like kind of pushed me into the masculine energy. And I was resistant to it because it was unfamiliar to me
yeah.
in a lot of ways. And so it's really, it's been eye opening in a lot of ways because um, learning the goal is to be able to balance both, just like the yin and yang symbol. That's why
Mm,
it's such a beautiful symbol. And when you're heavily too much into one, because what you kind of get into is like there's masculine feminine, then there's wounded feminine and wounded masculine.
yeah.
So like, when we think of masculine, we think of like, take action, set goals, get it done. The wounded masculine is controlling,
Yeah.
dominating type of thing. And then, feminine is kind of more like nurturing, playful.
Yeah.
And, wounded feminine is like needy, like desperate, just like nagging and like, and that's for both men and women. Like that, those behaviors show up. That's not gender specific at all. And so yeah. And so, like, learning to heal that, doing healing energy, and then stepping into the more empowered versions of those is like, well, that's where your awesomeness is going to come in. And then once you're able to, like, I view it as kind of like water, equilibrium, where you just like, you don't really stay in one. It's not healthy to stay in only one all the time. You need to learn how to shift. And in the shift, you're kind of actually, you go through between and you're actually in the middle. So like staying in the middle of the balance is like the goal, but it's like it's life, you it's you're gonna be through both. Like the sun doesn't stay up 24/7.
Yeah. And I think it's like, it's seasons, like in business, sometimes you do have to go into a bit more masculine to drive to do the thing, but
Yeah.
be season when you can pull back a bit and go into more feminine, into the creativity, leaning in, intuition.
Surrendering.
Exactly. But it's this balance between both. Because
Mhm.
it's not always easy to be right in the middle. Sometimes we actually do have to go to a bit more masculine and feminine, depends what we are doing or what we're trying to achieve. I
Yeah.
think the problem goes when we are far too much in either or. And let's say for women, if we are far too much into that feminine energy, things are not getting done in a business. And you actually do need to go a bit more into the masculine energy, so so the stuff can get done.
Mhm.
But sometimes we actually do need to go a bit more into the feminine, where we want, I don't know, create a post and we want to be a bit more creative and,
Yes.
invite the flow, and we don't necessarily need to be in that drive energy.
Mhm.
I think that goes the same for men. And I think we are not. slowing down enough in a society as it is, because we are into this hustle, drive, do more, hustle more, achieve more, have more. And we never stop to assess, is this even the life that I want, or did I just follow the flow of society because this is what I've been hearing from the day probably I went to school. This is what I should need, and this is how I should live in order to be happy.
Mhm.
Because I find a lot of people go into their 40s, 50s, and they go into this when the kids leave the homes and they're trying to like redefine themselves again, and they're getting a little bit lost and confused in all of this because suddenly their life is changing a lot. Maybe they've invested 20, 30 years into the career they actually don't like. They don't know how to unstuck themselves from this, from that pattern, because then becomes the fear of judgment and the fear of what everyone else is going to say if I'm just going to quit everything and I don't know, go travel the world or suddenly start a painting career. You know what I mean? I think people need to explore courage and self-trust a bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Checking in with yourself and like making a list of like, which one do you rest in more? You know, getting clear. And if you're not sure, like, ask your friends. They'll tell you. They
Yeah.
know. Absolutely, they know. And
So, following on this, how do you invite joy into your life? Because I think as adults, so many of us forget to live in joy. We think that adulthood is not nothing to do with joy. It's about working hard and not actually having any pleasure in life. So, how do you invite joy?
I love this question because it's such a good one, especially for adults. And I'll start it off by saying time enjoyed is not time wasted. And I believe that a lot of adults fall into this trap, especially in the entrepreneurial space and like high powered career, like, corporate type of space is like, well, why would I do that? It's not productive.
Mm,
Why wouldn't you do it? Like, if you're not an artist and you want to like paint just for fun, do it. Do you like to knit? Do you like to dance, even if nobody's watching? How do you bring more joy in your life? Hobbies is, a first suggestion, I would say. But if you don't even know your hobbies, what comes to mind as well, if you want to find more joy, start listening to those inner voices of curiosity. Things that may have nothing of importance, just like, I want to go for a walk today. And then you might
mm,
find something exciting happening, going to the park, seeing things like, for me personally, I love nature, just being in it. That doesn't mean I want to go climb a mountain or anything crazy, but like seeing beautiful works of art bring me joy. Joy is a feeling, and it's a fleeting feeling, just like all feelings are. But having the joy of, I guess what comes to mind also is the love languages as well.
mm, okay.
So like words of affirmation, physical
Mm,
touch, gifts, and quality time and acts of service in a lot of ways. And I guess the one that came up for me the most is like, well, quality time is like my second one. So like that comes up. And that one comes up because like spending time with friends is joyous. Maybe not for all introverts, but it is. Spending time with people you care about or connecting with others is a way to bring more joy and connection and
mm.
fulfillment in your life. So I could give so many directions with this one because there's so many great options. But at the same time, like you don't have to make it complicated. You can find joy just like the sun. Oh my goodness, it's beautiful today. Like I love waking up to sunny days. Like summer is my favorite season, spring and summer, because I love the green trees. It's very beautiful around where I live. So I'm just like I wake up, I'm like, oh, and right there, that brings me more joy. And having that.
That's a choice. I think that comes out to, we're like we choose not to go there, and then we go into the habit of working hard and working all the time. And what you mentioned earlier, it gets uncomfortable. And I know when we want to slow down and go into joy, we don't even know how.
Mm,
We don't even know how to take pleasure from those simple things. And the key is simple. It doesn't have to be elaborate and
mm,
complicated.
Yeah.
sunset, sunrise, bird singing, like literally anything can bring you joy.
Children laughing. Laughter is contagious.
Especially children, the little ones, they're like
Especially
amazing
children.
to watch. But yeah, it's like it's finding those little things because hustling and working all the time is not going to get you any faster there. It will get you is probably burnout.
For now. Yes. Yes.
So finding those moments when you can actually slow down and enjoy yourself because we don't know how long we've got here.
Hmm.
So don't leave your life for later because you don't know how much later you've got. The key is now. Or what comes to mind is the book The Power of the Now.
Yeah.
It's enjoy your life now, live now, because you have no idea. I've met so many people when they left their lives for later. They saved the money, they saved the holidays, they didn't spend the time with the family, and then it came the time when they retired and they ended up with severe diagnosis, or they actually even died, or they had severe mobility problems, and they didn't got the life they were craving so much all those decades because they were leaving everything for later. I find that's a chronic problem in a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
And I find it fascinating how in the West, especially because I think that's not necessarily a big problem far East, in Buddhist China and those kind of cultures, we in the West struggle to slow down, struggle to meditate, struggle to just take time to be.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially in America.
Right.
It's a major problem here in a lot of ways. Presence.
Mm,
If you live in the past, you have depression. If you live in the future, you have anxiety. But your happiness only rests in the present.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Beautifully said. Right. Kind of circling back to your previous things that you said. I think you've kind of replied to that one, but I want to kind of ask you anyway. What does confidence or being confident means to you?
Confidence means to me is being the bravest version that I can possibly be, the inner superhero, superheroine within me, putting on that cape, it's metaphorical, and standing tall, breathing deeply with my chest out, my chin down, and taking on the day as I do, like the superhero version of me.
Good. It's kind of a different answer, but I like how the metaphor.
I mean, yeah,
Really good.
that's definitely what it comes to mind for me.
Right. Okay, and just one final question. So this podcast is titled You Can Be Unstoppable.
Mhm.
What would be your three top tips for the audience listening that can be easily applied in terms of how to become more unstoppable? And we can link this into confidence, how to become that best version of yourself when you're unstoppable. You've got the confidence and you go for it.
Mhm. I would say how you become more unstoppable. The number one thing is do something that scares you. If every day you can, go for it. If not, a couple times a week. But continuing to do things that scare you, stretch you for sure.
Mm.
Second thing I would say is drink water. Like get sleep, take care of yourself. Seriously, you want to be unstoppable? Take care of your body, your mind.
Mm.
Don't get enough sleep. Sleep, like sleep and exercise. If you get that on a regular basis, like more than 6 hours, ideally 7 hours of sleep, actual sleep, not just laying in the bed,
Mm.
it's going to be just as effective as like antidepressants and anxiety medication.
Oh,
And helps you with like, all the things, we know all the things like sleep, focus, all the things. But like, so like I would combine it into one, like sleep, water, and exercise.
let's call it self-care.
Pretty much self-care. And so the last one I would say is How to be unstoppable. Take care of the connections you have. Deepen those relationships. The ones that are meaningful. Not everyone, of course, but deepen them. You'd be surprised what you don't know. You can never truly know somebody. There's always something to learn about them, even if you're with them for 50 years. So I've been told. So those would be the three things I'd say.
I like them. I really like them. They're simple. Well, I'm saying simple, but I think a lot of
It's simple, but
people
not easy.
struggle with the second one, with, drinking enough water, taking care of the vessel that you want to have while you're here, because if that vessel can't carry you any forward, then you won't be able to be more confident and be more unstoppable. I love this.
Mhm.
So thank you very much for this wonderful conversation. That was quite insightful to have men on my podcast. I don't have too many men. So it's nice to bring men on the podcast and get their perspective on things every now and again. So thank you very much for coming.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening. If you found value in this podcast, I would like to ask you to leave a positive review explaining how this episode helped you to improve your life. I ask you to do this because this will help other people to improve their lives as well. Share and spread the love all around you. Raise your vibrations to improve your life. If you would like more transformational content like this, connect with me on Instagram. You can find a link in the description of this podcast, and I'll see you over in the next episode.